Pittsburgh is a city that was the steel capital of the world at one time, and we had at least twice the population that we have today. Now in the 80s, the steel industry left. As the steel industry left, thousands of homes were torn down. And so now what exists in Pittsburgh is over 27,000 vacant lots, kind of like missing teeth, if you will, in the neighborhood. Those are opportunities. Those are the kinds of lots and neighborhoods that we want to be building in.
Let's go for a walk inside. To the left will be front kitchen area and the bar. Then walk around back here. Now I actually have a backyard, which would be nice, but then you'll access that through the bedroom.
And this garage will come down or stay?
The garage is going down, so that starts next week.
So we had a 2-car garage on this site, and a lot of kind of grass and overgrowth. Took all that out, demolished the garage, and now we're starting to dig for foundations. Essentially, over the next couple weeks, this is going to turn from a vacant lot into a fully enclosed 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. So it's really transforming pretty quickly. Today's set day, so we've got the panels that have been shipped from New Hampshire. So they're on the back of this truck here. This is the first load. We've got a crane that, you can probably see it, there it is. The crane is gonna pick the panels off this truck, and then we're gonna set the wall panels one by one onto the foundation. Hey Encore, how many panels do we have? I think 6 wall panels in total. You know, this is months of work, designing and engineering, and now it's time to see the shell go up.
That's good. How much room do I have when I'm hitting? I need to know. I got about a foot. How much room we got over there? Can I spin it?
Because this is an urban infill site, we have garages to the left, we have the client's house to the right. We have to be very kind of precise with bringing machinery in, almost like a surgeon would, really.
Keep spinning.
We've been building homes the same way since the 40s with the suburban subdivision. And Levittown, New York being the first one of those. Sticks and bricks. Over time, a lot of other industries have progressed a lot faster than the construction industry. We're one of the least productive industries.
Whoa, up a little more. Come on up. Up a little bit. Okay.
While we have in Pittsburgh autonomous vehicles driving around the city, we're still building homes with a hammer and a nail.
Please, thank you. Boom them down, get over there. Boom them, no, that's out, down.
We have a labor shortage, a construction labor shortage here in the U.S.
as our labor force, construction labor force is aging, there is not another, younger demographic that's moving into the labor force on the construction side of things.
All right, cable down, that's good, cable down.
And our housing needs to change to accommodate that.
Cable down, he's about beautiful, cable down. There's nothing on that plate, right? Who knows?
And so off-site is a much more efficient way to build. Modules homes, it's in a factory-controlled environment. So, we have a semi-automated manufacturing facility that's building our first home, where we're sending them our 3D models. They are turning that into shop drawings. And instead of guys standing out in the rain to do framing and being delayed by that in a city like Pittsburgh where it's rainy a lot, our walls are being manufactured in a weather-controlled environment and through a semi-automated process.
To show you, we use cellulose insulation, and this goes in at a pallet at a time and has an elevator that brings it to the top.
So some of those machines, like the CNC routers, are able to make cuts, and some of their nailing machines are a lot faster and more precise than what's done on site when we call it stick building on site.
We do have to rethink how we build homes.
How do we build homes more like cars, through an assembly line, through a factory-controlled environment, to drive the cost down? So off-site construction, better quality control, better precision, also less time on site. If you think about it, the same time that we're building the foundation in Pittsburgh, we have our factory doing the framing, the insulation, the windows and doors. And so those things can be, basically, they used to have to be done one after the other. Now they can be done in parallel. So we're able to shrink the construction time on site.
Yesterday we set all the wall panels. Today we're setting the roof panels. Logistically they were a little hard to get here based on site restrictions with wires, alleyway, turns, but once they're here it's essentially like putting together a big Lego set, and who doesn't like putting together Legos?
You gotta be on my side of the line up at point. Ready? You see how close are you from the line?
When we think about in Pittsburgh the housing needs, a lot of the new construction homes are going for $600,000 to $1 million. They're 2,000 square feet. They may have 1 or 2 car garages, but that prices out a lot of people in Pittsburgh who want something new.
So I think there's supposed to be electric and water outside.
There's water. If you see on that one panel,
right, yeah.
that green,
Uh-huh.
that's the hole for the water.
Oh, okay. We do have electric too.
Yeah, and they can just fish that up. They actually, right behind the OSB that's over at the top of the window, you can see a little bit of black sticking out. Those are the openings for the electric.
Okay. But is there also one down low for a plug?
Because you want one on the deck too.
Yeah, for lights. Yeah, because we don't have that in our other house, and that makes me sad.
Our client's home is here on the corner. This property is a separate property. While the purpose of the home is like an in-law suite, as their parents are going to eventually move in here, it's on its own property. When I think about the demographics of our country, and this is something that we study at our company, the number 1 household in the US is a single person living alone. Number 2 household is 2 adults living together. And that's a huge portion of the US households. But a lot of the single family homes that are being built are actually being built for what we call the nuclear family, mom, dad, and 3 kids. So 6-bedroom home, 3-car garage is typically what the average home builder is building in the US today, but that's not serving the actual real needs of the demographics of our country.
What's really critical about our company is whenever we work with a home buyer, we want to make sure that their house is the right size for them.
Oh, you guys forgot to pull the board off!
We realize that person, as they're going through stages of life, their needs will change, but today their home can't. And so we've created a solution where your house can evolve as your needs change throughout your life. And we're saying you don't need to buy a bigger house. Buy the amount of house you need today and add on as your needs change. Pay as you go, if you will.
As we've been developing our technology as a company, we've designed a removable roof and wall system. So we have patents pending on a removable roof system and a wall system that makes the addition process easier and faster.
Easy, hold. Okay, he's in, down. Good, he's in. Yeah, he's in, there's only one.
So when you think about typically adding on to a home, what do you have to do? You have to rip the roof off. Typically the shingles are glued and nailed, and it's just a really messy process that can take a long time. What we've done is we've designed the roof to be removed and reused.
I'm in the hole. I'm in the hole. I'm in the hole. I'm in the hole. Don't.
I got good news and I got bad news. I'm not getting this one.
And then with our wall system, in the backs of some of these homes, because we're working on infill lots, if you see here in Pittsburgh, the lots are not that wide, so we're not adding on to the side, we're really adding on to the back. And so when you think about adding onto the back, it's thinking about the flow of the floor plan if another room were added on. And so thinking about that, but then also having kind of a framed out opening for where that pass-through will be.
Yeah, I'm in. Good to go, Todd.
And then what we thought about is the floor plan of that floor where the roof is currently sitting on. How do we size the room in the back so that we can add a stair to go up to another story?
All right, so we just finished panel install. So all the roof panels, all the wall panels are up, and now the shell of the building is essentially done. So this has been basically 2 mornings. In 2 mornings we did this, a 2-day effort. I think that's a huge value add for Pittsburgh when we think about working on construction projects in the wintertime. This, we had 2 nice days. We were lucky to get 2 days in a row, but this was huge to get this house up in 2 days, basically.
The concept of this incremental house, this house that can grow with you, actually grew out of some studies that I was doing with a friend in South America. A friend and I got this traveling fellowship to travel to 5 cities in South America. And we went to try to understand how architects and designers were trying to address the housing crisis in those cities. We came across a couple of projects that basically were designing incremental housing. So in Peru, there was a project called PREVI, the Proyecto Experimental de Vivienda. And that project was in the 1960s. It was bringing architects from around the world to design medium density, low-rise housing in the city. But all of the homes were finished so that people could add stories on top of the house. And the reason they did that is because a lot of people who were going to live in these spaces used to be living on sort of the informal settlements around the city. And they were used to building their own homes. So what they would do is they didn't have enough money, or there was no mortgage, so they had to save up enough money to build one room and then put rebar through the roof and add more stories on top. So that concept of incremental housing was then used by these architects in Lima on this PREVI project. And then it was further progressed in some projects in Chile called Elemental and Alejandro Aravena, who actually won the Pritzker Prize in 2016. And a lot of his work was building off some of that stuff that was done in the 1960s in Peru, but now in Santiago and other areas of Chile. In that project, in Chile, the government only had a small amount of subsidy. So with that little amount of money, they could either build a normal-sized house with really poor materials, or they could build half of a good house and let the residents kind of build out the rest. And so they did that. It was a really interesting project to see how residents were adding on spaces onto that existing kind of starter home, and that provided a lot of kind of context for our project. I thought, this is a good kernel of an idea, but how do we apply it in the United States?
Okay, so someone comes to our website.
All of our homes are designed to grow. How our customers can add on to the house is through what we're calling our digital platform.
Check out different addition options, maybe a kitchen, bedroom, or side room.
So essentially, this is a tool through our website that enables our customers to buy the amount of house they need today and then add on as their needs change.
It's been very shocking to have a structure pop up, because it took a long time to get the foundation done.
Yeah.
And once that was done, the structure just appeared, 2 days later, right in our backyard. Like literally, we look out, I get my cup of coffee in the morning, I'm looking at the house.
And then we're gonna go check it over here. So what about?
We acquired the lot with the intent, our original intent was actually to remodel the garage. We then decided that my parents were starting to get a little older and we were looking for an option for housing, and started looking around and talking to various architects and builders about what we could do on the lot. It was actually not zoned for a dwelling at all. So one of the variances we needed to get was to actually build a house on such a small lot. And I think there's definitely interest in the city to make smaller housing available, especially fill housing.
This is an alley, essentially, more or less, with a lot of garages on either side. And it's about 25 feet by 100 feet is the property. It's an infill site. We've got a community garden right across the street. So our client, Annabelle and Jason, they work in this community garden, they care for the community garden, and it's kind of part of their backyard almost, if you will. So you'll notice this blue facade, a couple different shades of blue on this facade. And we were playing off the eyeball of the octopus in the octopus garden. If you look at this side of the house, you can see when the light's hitting it that we've got a bunch of different shades and textures here, and it feels almost like the octopus's arms, the dragon's arms in the garden. And the entryway should feel comforting, and so this warm cedar is a way to kind of start to bring some of the natural elements in and that warm texture and color. And so this is essentially the front door. So come on in and we'll show you guys a little bit of the house. So it's an open living and kitchen. So the living space starts to bleed into the kitchen. So we call this the nook. They love looking at that garden space out there, and you're just getting to see that garden and just being able to appreciate it. This nook is custom, so there are built-in furniture.
Also, these built-ins, they're more under seat storage in all of these. So you got some extra pillows in here. So this is also wide enough that you could have an extra person sleep on this too. Yep, someone's backpack. It's nice and light, and I like the living room light fixture because it just kind of, it's got a sculptural shape to it.
Mm-hmm.
The ceiling is a natural knotty pine ceiling, and I think it's really unique when we look at, you know, the typical new construction home. Everything's drywall, but this ceiling actually brings warmth into the space.
Yeah, that also helps to lighten up the space, and it kind of echoes the wood in the exterior entryway.
Right.
You notice we have these warm LEDs, and they are surface mounted. So they're not can lights, they're actually surface mounted LEDs. So that's a smart switch company. You can actually turn on and off the lights with your smartphone, but they also come with this kind of fun dimmer where you can set the mood. So when we talk about the kitchen, we've got the microwave here, we have the oven, and all of these are IoT connected as well. So you can kind of preheat your oven from your phone as well when you're, if you're coming home.
So the dishwasher is nice and quiet, works really well.
So everything's very high end, but small, or fits into the space well.
And I like the built-in, the cabinet depth fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how it blends in and matches with the cabinetry. Everyone's always surprised when they're like, where's the fridge?
Yeah.
Like, it's right here.
You kind of have limited choices when you have a
small space.
Small space.
Yeah, but we picked out this apron front sink.
Mm-hmm. My favorite part of the kitchen, though, is the backsplash.
Yeah, it's still the backsplash.
That was one of our splurges as far as doing that and having it fit in again with the community garden and the whole space.
And then the floating shelves, I like that too. So we kind of maximize the storage without like having too many. I thought having cabinets would be a little too heavy, so.
Yeah, when you're dealing with a tight space, it's important to have open, as many open areas as you can. Every few inches of open space makes the room feel bigger.
So the window, so this is a big window. And why it's so big is because our client was designing to passive house standards. So with passive house, you're trying to optimize what we call the thermal performance of the building. So anytime you have a piece of structure that doesn't have insulation on either side of it, then it's a way that heat can be lost through the building. So with passive house, we're trying to minimize those penetrations through the building envelope, whether that's screws or whether that's a 2x4 or whatever. And so could this have been 3 windows throughout this facade? Yes, but this minimizes the actual holes essentially that we have to put into the building envelope. And so having one large window, you have less seams to essentially protect. Because there was no existing foundation here, slab on grade was the most cost-effective solution. One of the challenges with slab on grade is that when it's cold outside, all the heat basically just passes through the slab outside, and it's really cold when you're walking in your home in the dead of winter. And in Pittsburgh, it gets pretty cold. So what we did is we created an insulated slab where we have 6 inches of rigid blue board foam insulation under the slab, and then we have 2 inches of exterior insulation all throughout the slab. So really what we're trying to do is eliminate heat loss from when the house is nice and warm and toasty to when the outside temperature is really cold. That insulation helps prevent heat loss. The slab is a polished concrete, and we poured this in the dead of winter in Pittsburgh, which is really damn tough. You'll see these exhaust valves, for lack of a better term. Because the building envelope in this house is so efficient and so tight that air could get stale in this space. And so what we actually put, and it's in the walk-in closet above the ceiling, it's called an energy recovery ventilator, an ERV. It constantly is cycling out stale air out of the building through these vents. So there's vents here, and then there's a vent, I believe, in the bathroom. So this is pulling stale air out of the building, and then there's a vent over here at the top of that wall, which is pushing in fresh air. And so as the stale air is coming out of the building and the fresh air is coming in, it's actually preconditioning the air. So more or less, if the stale air in the building is cooler and the air out here is warmer like today,
it's trying to precondition that air so that our mini split system has less work to do.
Because this house is so well insulated, there's a ridiculous amount of insulation in the foundation and the walls and the roof. We only needed really minimal heating requirements, so we have this ductless mini split system, which, because the house is so tight, doesn't even need to be on very often.
We had a whole week here where it was, I think it was 5 degrees was the high for a couple of days. And literally they had a space heater in the closet set at 63 degrees. And when you walked in, it was 63 degrees. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So that really showed the energy efficiency. You know, we had like breezes in our 120-year-old house as opposed to coming over here and having it be perfectly, you know, exactly the temperature set on your space heater, right? It was really nice.
Moving into the bathroom, when people walk into this space, they're like, wow, this feels a lot bigger. This bathroom feels big for the size of the house. And it is, and we designed it because we thought about, you know, a person with a walker maybe, or someone who's older trying to get into this shower. So going from there to here. So you notice that there's no steps, you just walk right in. So there's no tripping hazard there. And this, the shower is actually a Schluter system. So it's this system where a lot of the components are pre-built, and then we did the penny tile and the subway tile obviously on site. Utility closet here. So this is a condensing dryer, washer dryer combo, and hyper efficient. It doesn't even have a vent, so it's using a lot less heat than the typical dryer does. And then this is a hybrid hot water heater. If the ambient air in here is a little bit hotter than the water, then it will actually pull some of the ambient air to try to heat up the water before it kicks in with the electrical. So this hybrid hot water heater was an interesting feature, and we think will help this home's utility bills stay low. Okay. So here we are in the bedroom, and this is a pretty big bed. It's a king-size bed. So for a small house, we were able to fit a big bed in here. That's where we have the energy recovery ventilator, which is in the ceiling here. This vent actually pushes out fresh air into the building. Our client asked for these custom barn doors. And so this is spalted maple. It's by a local artist here in Pittsburgh out of Bridgeville, Pennsylvania. And this tree actually was struck by lightning on the artist's parents' property, and she grabbed the tree and then turned it into this beautiful piece. And so the barn doors slide like this, and you know, it saves space because you don't have that door swing. That bedroom feels a little bit bigger. And also I imagine because their family will be here, they'll be entertaining a lot. And so, you know, being able to open this barn door up from the front door, you can essentially see through to the back of the house, and you can kind of get a glimpse of that porch in the back. So we felt that they saved space, and they're a fun detail. This space is significant size for a bedroom, and we sized the bedroom slightly larger because in the event our client wanted to, let's say our client in 20 years wants to move into the house. So after Annabelle and Jason's parents are living here, Annabelle and Jason want to move in, then we've sized this room so that we could add a stair, so a stair back here, and then would add a second story. And so once the stair comes into this space, essentially this would turn from kind of a master suite into a guest bedroom, and then we would add likely 2 bedrooms and another bathroom on top of this house. All right, so as we walk outside onto the back porch, because you're on this alleyway, this is a little bit of the sanctuary, I'll call it, in the house. I just like sitting out here and listening to the trees, you know, the ruffle in the wind, and you start to see the sunlight just peek through. And this would be a great place to hang out, I think, on a Saturday afternoon, just be a lot of fun. A morning cup of coffee here would be pretty great, I think. Sitting down, and so really when you look at how tight we are, and you'll see that there's doors on the fences here. This piece of property actually has an easement. So all of the neighbors who own homes here actually have an easement to walk through the property and access their backyard. So when we were building this house, we had to think and be cognizant of the neighbors and how this affects the community, because you'll see we're literally in the backyard of all these other folks. And then you'll see here, you'll see that the foundation of the old garage, or at least the exterior walls of that old garage, you can just see the remnants here. So actually where we're standing right now is where that existing garage on the property was. So eventually what Annabelle and Jason would like to do, I think, is more or less, if you imagine cutting a hole through that garage from this side through, that way they'll have a pass through onto this property and can have family parties and functions right out in the front of this house. So this is actually the exterior insulation on the slab. So behind this concrete is that 2 inches of rigid exterior insulation. So that wraps the entire facade again to keep that much more thermally efficient. This is again our facade, and it's just kind of fun and playful, and it directs your attention toward the garden. I remember we started this company 3 years ago. I moved back to my parents' house. I was living abroad in the Dominican Republic, and I moved back to my Pittsburgh, which is my hometown, and living with my parents. And I had these little architecture models that I went to my old high school shop. I asked them, hey, can I hop into the shop and make some little models of these ideas? And so for the first year, I was basically living with my parents and had a bunch of architecture models in a shoebox and was walking around the city saying, hey, I've got this idea. So we're pretty proud as a company that we've turned that into a real project.
In cities like Pittsburgh, our neighborhoods are changing quickly. We want to make sure that everyone can live in the city who needs to live in the city, who needs to work in the city. Because our goal isn't to build one house. Our goal is to build thousands of houses throughout the United States. Our goal is to make the average home buyer that's thinking about home ownership to be able to work with us to design a right-sized, energy-efficient starter home. A house that meets their needs today, and then work with us as their needs change.